Hey friends, it's Laura with Laura's Handmade Haven. Welcome or welcome back. I'm so glad you joined me today. We are going to do our very first Cricut craft on Laura's Handmade Haven. So today I thought I would just share with you one of my very favorite quick little gift ideas to do with the Cricut, and that is a Can Koozie. I've made so many of these for gifts. I've made them obviously for my quilting friends, my game night friends, my family and friends. So yeah, they're so quick, so easy, and so fun. With just a few supplies, you can have some really fun, customizable gifts that you can give out to your friends and family. So let me go down the list of supplies that you're going to need, and then we're going to head on over to the computer and show you how to set these things up in the Cricut design space. So the first thing you want to do is grab some supplies. Now I did order a whole bunch of Can Koozies from Amazon. That link is in the description box below. And then you're also going to want some HTV, which is heat transfer vinyl. I like Sizer Easy Weed. You can also use, Cricut has their own brand of heat transfer vinyl. Just make sure that it is HTV and not the type of vinyl that you would use for decorative projects and things like that in your home. So then you would also, what I also grab is I need a paper trimmer, I need a Cricut mat, I definitely want my super cool little weeding tool. This is actually a Cricut brand tool too, but any weeding tool will work. If you do any type of vinyl, then you probably have a weeding tool, and if not, you need to get yourself one. Then obviously you do need some blank Can Koozies. Now I've grabbed out 4 because that's how many Can Koozies I'm making today, and you'll find out why at the end of the video. In addition to those items, you're going to obviously need a Cricut machine or some type of a die cut machine. The same basic concepts are going to apply to any of die cutting machines that you may have. I am not familiar with the Silhouette or the Brother Print and Cut, so I can only give you information about the Cricut. And then also you're going to need some sort of heat press. So I actually have a Cricut Easy Press, but you can totally do this with just a regular iron if you don't have a press machine. First things first, we need to set up our graphic that we want to cut out and cut that out with the Cricut. So the first place we're going to go is over to the computer. Okay, so I'm going to assume that you know how to use Cricut Design Space, and I'm going to assume that you've been in here before and that you have played with things before. This is not a brand new beginner video. I'm going to assume that you have some basic knowledge of how to use Cricut Design Space. I just want to show you a few little tips and tricks that I do that kind of help me just speed up the process a little bit. So the first thing I'm going to do is go to the canvas, and I do have a file open, so let me just open a new canvas. So I'm just going to go and look for an image. And I'm going to add a flower to my canvas. And then I'm going to just go over here, and I'm also going to add some text that just says, it's always better to make stuff up. And I'm just going to kind of mess with that just a little bit to get it into a format that I like. And let's change the font to something a little more fun. Now this is something that I've started doing that I really like doing with, especially with the Can Koozies. If you choose a stencil font, then that means you're going to have a heck of a lot less weeding to do later. So we're going to go ahead and use a stencil font, and that just means that all of the stuff on the outside of this will just pull right off, and you don't have to weed out every one of those little dots in the O's and the A's and the F's and things like that. All of that stuff should pull right out for you. Now, Can Koozies, when you measure them, I like to stay right around 3 inches for my width and about 3 inches for the height as well. All right, so I'm just going to play with this a little bit, just decide which one I like the best. I think I'm going to go back to the beginning to the first one I tried just because I really like that one the most. So let's see if we can find that one back. That was the BFC Blue Sports Car. Yeah, that's kind of fun.
All right, so now I'm just going to move that up here. And the other thing I'm going to do is go over to Color Sync because I am going to cut both of these out in white, so it doesn't really matter what color it is on my screen. The other thing I want to do is I want to have Laura's Handmade Haven. And then I want to, I'm not going to use that font on that one just because it's a little hard to read, especially when I turn it into a circle here real quick. And you're going to do that by just going up to the curve and just curving all the way around. Now I'm not going to go all the way around because I'm going to leave it right about 95. Maybe not, maybe 97. Yep. Now I'm going to go back here and find a cute little shape, but I'm actually just going to use a heart. And I'm going to bring it down. And let's just flip it. And I'm going to put it right there. And now I'm going to click and drag around both of those elements. Go back to your layers. And you can either attach or combine, either one works. And then I'm going to rotate this so Laura's is on the left here. And that little heart just kind of gives me an idea of where it stops, right? But that is way too big. Remember, we want like 3 inches for these. So that's about the size we want. And then we're going to put this flower in the middle, and we're going to say 2 inches on that. We'll just see what that looks like. Yep, I like that. And then I'm going to click and drag around both of those things and align them and just center it. So now that flower should be pretty close to being centered right in the middle of that circle, although it looks like it's not. So let me see. All right, I think I'm happier with that. It might need to go down a little bit too. All right, so now we're going to just attach all of that. And remember, this is on the back side. You know, I want this to be a little bigger. So why don't we... We can just adjust some of these things, make the line space a little bigger, letter space a little less, and then we should be able to go up with the font. And that's, it's not too bad, honestly. Let's do the height at 3. Actually, let's do the width at 3, see what happens. 3.16, that's probably fine. All right, so this next tip is something that is, it's going to save you a lot of time, especially when you're weeding. So we're going to make this square on the canvas and we're going to put it behind the text. Now we're going to, I just like dragged in around both of those elements, go up to align, click center, and now when those two things are still highlighted over here in your layers panel, you're going to click attach. Now, it makes your words look a little funky, but trust me, this is a good thing, and you're going to love it once you go to weed. Now, we put another square on the canvas. Again, we'll make it 3.5 inches. All right, so now we have our square. We're going to take the attach, and we're going to move it up, because that's just the easiest way to do that. One more. Come on. There we go. Now our square will go behind that. We're going to, again, click and drag across the canvas to highlight both of those items. Go up to align and hit center, and then we're going to say attach. Again, this is going to look a little funky, but trust me, you're going to love it once we go to cut it out. So now we're going to say, yes, we want to save this. Whoops. And we're going to make 4 of these. Now, you can leave them just the way they are on the canvas. I kind of like to have a little space between my things. So I am going to just kind of drag and drop them around the canvas and put them where I want. Now, obviously, we are going to have a little bit of waste, but not too much. So that's fine. And remember that you know, I could hide elements. I could just do one set at a time. I can do all of that stuff. But remember, we're doing HTV, so it's very, very important that you click mirror. So everything's going to look backwards because, well, it is because we iron our HTV onto the Can Koozie, and you cut it out backwards, you flip it over and iron it on, so it has to be mirrored. All right. And now, even though I'm using sizer, I'm going to choose everyday iron on, and it even tells you make sure mirror is turned on. And it is, I promise, because yeah, I've done that so many times. All right, so let's head over to the cutting table and we'll get our vinyl ready. I'll show you a couple tips on that before we feed it into the machine. Okay, so I kind of left this area a mess, sorry about that, but it is live. Correct. Okay, so we have our HTV. And we have a paper trimmer. So I'm just going to get my tape off of this. And this is, like I said, this is Sizer Easy Weed. It's not the Smart Materials. I do have some Smart Materials by Cricut, and I do love it, but this is not that. All right, I'm gonna cut that 12-inch because that's how much I need for this project. This can go back over to the side. That's really all I needed the trimmer for. And then you got to look at your vinyl and figure out which side is the shiny one, because the shiny is the protective coating, or the kind of like the weeding sheet. So you're going to put its shiny side down, line it up on your mat, and then you're going to use a little bit of tape just to tape those corners, because believe me, so many times I have not done that and wish I would have, because when it's going through the machine, sometimes this little vinyl likes to flip up on you, and that is not a good time. All right, so we're going to take this over to the Cricut and feed it through. I do have the Cricut Maker 3. I love it. Now this is going to take a little while to cut because I have, 8 images to do. But I will let you see some of the cutting, and then we will head on over to the heat press and start pressing onto our Can Koozies. I just wanted to show you how to weed these off really quickly and easily. And then I went into just pulling the excess off. So let's just pull the excess off first. And that will show us where all of our little squares are for our design. And then I can show you why we put those little squares around things and attach those together. It's because now, just like you see here, it's easy to weed this stuff off. So like here's one of the words again. So I'm just going to take my weeding tool and put it underneath here, and I'm just going to pull and drag across that whole section. And then there are my words. I have a couple little things to pull out of there. Not too many though. And remember, we used a stencil font for this, so I didn't have to pick out all of the little interior circles and such for all those letters, because most of them had little breaks in them, so you didn't have to worry about all of that. And I think it's still a really pretty font. Now obviously if you if you want to
have a different font that requires that, then you're just gonna have a little bit more weeding to do. I just like to speed up my process a little bit, especially like I just had a project where I made like 80 of these, and I did not want to have to weed for all 80 of those. So that's what I did. All right, so now I'm gonna turn this because I'm getting my hand all sticky there. And then inside the sunflower, we're just gonna pull out all of the petals. Now I also want to, and I will, I'm gonna show you two ways to do this. So hang on a second too, because this is, I'm weeding out all the sections that you would, you know, think you should, right? But if you don't want to weed all of that, you could actually pull out the main image and be left with just the little white petals. So we're going to do that on one of them too, so you can just see the difference. And then when we do the Can Koozies, you'll be able to see just, you know, the difference in that look. All right, so there's one way that we can weed it, and I weeded both of those the same way. And then let me show you just a different way to weed this. So there I weeded all the letters out, right? Just by pulling that square off, which again is so nice. And you know, there is a little cleanup because the vinyl does, you know, if you have like little bitty things some places, sometimes the vinyl will rip, and you do have to pull that out. But instead of picking out all of those, what I could do is just take this outside edge of the flower, and then you're left with basically the reversed look of that flower. So that's kind of cool, right? Okay, so the next thing I like to do is just kind of flip it over and look and make sure that the letters all look the way they should. And I do think everything looks pretty right, except for right up here, there's something going on. There's an extra little piece of vinyl up there with the W, or the Y rather. I don't know where W came from. Okay. And all right, so now what I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna use my paper trimmer and cut these apart. This is the other reason that I like to have them a little space on the mat between the images, just because that way I can just easily and quickly use my paper trimmer to cut between them. Otherwise, if you have them really close together, then you may end up needing to, you know, use your scissors, which, I mean, that doesn't take forever either. But again, if you're making a bunch of these, just a few ways to kind of speed up the process. Okay, so the Can Koozies are called neoprene. That's the type of fabric. It's used kind of like in diving suits and things like that. We're gonna go with the flower side first. And the reason I do all of them with the same side first, because that way I don't forget and mess up. Now we're going to move this so it looks like Laura's Handmade Haven. And I think we're just going to make it just like that. And you can place these however you want. You know, no matter what your image looked like on the computer, you can definitely change it here. And I might do these all of these a little different, actually, just because. Why not? Okay, so I figured out that I can do 4 of these at a time, and you do want to put the a silicone sheet over this. I just have a Cricut silicone sheet, and this is definitely big enough that you can get 4 of those Can Koozies underneath at a time. And I have it set on a temperature of 305 and a timer of 30 seconds. Now, I will probably let it go to 30 seconds, and I am pushing down on this. It's not just sitting there. You definitely want to push down straight. You don't want to wiggle, and you definitely don't want to slide around, because you can move that vinyl. As it heats up, it gets soft and pliable, and it kind of it does. It releases from the backing, and
if you wiggle and move around with the heat press, then you run the risk of also shifting that vinyl, and you won't have as good of an imprint. So, yeah. All right, so now those have been pressed for like, I don't know, 30 seconds-ish. We're gonna let them cool down for a second as well, and then we're gonna peel the plastic layer off. Just the vinyl will be remaining, and then we will give them another little press and then flip them and do the reverse side. All right, so you may have noticed I am quiet and picking because my little D here did not do what it was supposed to, and it bent back over itself. But while it's still warm, you can totally make it stick. And actually, I think what happened was, yep, it flipped, it turned on itself, it got twisted. So I can line this back up. All right, here we go. Now, that side didn't get heated up as much, I don't believe. So I'm just gonna give it a nice little press. These guys are just hanging out, they're fine. Nothing's gonna be going wrong with them just because they're hanging out there. If you do let them sit for a little too long and the plastic seems to be difficult to get off, just heat it up for a couple seconds and then it'll peel right off. So another little tip for you in case things go awry, because sometimes they do when you're crafting, you know? All right, so I'm gonna let that one sit. Let's grab a different color. All right, and then we're just gonna peel this back. There we go. That's what's supposed to happen. No twisted D's. Oh. This always happens, you know, when I'm recording something. It's like if I do it on my own without a camera going, then everything is well and fine. If I turn the camera on, it's like, no, I'm gonna show all kinds of terrible things. All right, so now we're gonna go ahead and take this one off again. Now that our D and M and A are all happy. See, they're all fine. And then we're going to put them all back together right in their cute little quadrant and give it a nice little press just for, you know, I would say 10, 12 seconds maybe. I just like doing this just kind of for like another little like heat set type thing. All right, now we're gonna flip all these over and we're gonna put the letters on the other side, the little saying. Now obviously I don't want any words upside down, so I will pay attention to which way my words are going. And just kind of center that. You don't really have to worry about too much about being centered on these, just because remember they're going around a can, right? So it's not going to be, you know, it's not going to matter. People are going to turn their can and they're going to be like, oh, it's not on the front anymore. Well, yeah, it's on the back. It's fine. It's on the side, whatever, as long as it's not upside down. And maybe if it is upside down, that's fine too. You know, you could do that if you wanted. And then when they're tipping their can up, it'd be right side up. And again, we're going to let those cool just for a couple seconds, just because you want that vinyl to start setting onto the neoprene and releasing off of that plastic, and it should be. But I've found that if you just let it hang for a couple seconds, then it's easier to pull it off. Especially with these fancy little letters. And just go slow. Because with all those little edges, you want to make sure that you don't just yank it off of there, because you could totally pull a letter up a little bit. Because remember, we are going to heat set this after we get the plastic off of there too, just for a little extra bonus. And you can see this one definitely pulled off easier, just because it was setting just for, you know, a few seconds extra. I'm sure there's probably an exact time that you're supposed to leave this, but I'm not patient enough to look it up, I guess. I don't know. All right. And again, we're going to put these back together in their cute little quadrant.
And we're going to just heat set those again just for, 10 to 15 seconds. I am pressing down on this. I'm not just like, my hand's not just hanging out there. It's actually pressing down. If you have one of those fancy heat press machines that you pull down and latch, oh, I'm jealous. All right. So now we have 4 very cute little Can Koozies. Woohoo! Hang on one second. Let me grab my Coca-Cola bottle so you can see what this looks like standing up. So obviously these aren't soda cans, so they're not completely filled out, but it gets a good, you get the idea of it, right? So we have 2 different versions of the same thing. One of them we weeded out the petals on the flower, and the other one we just weeded off that outer flower and left the petals. So I don't know, which one do you like better? Which one? Kind of cute, right? And here's the back. All right, so here's your surprise. Out of the 4 Can Koozies I just made, I will be shipping out 3 of them to 3 lucky winners. All you gotta do is leave me a comment on this video. I will do a drawing in 2 weeks. I will reply to your comment with, "You win!" And then all you gotta do is email me your address and I will ship that out to you. Yes, I will be shipping them worldwide, so it does not matter where you're at. Just leave me a comment below. Even you, Miss Louise, I know, I see you up in Canada, I see you. Until next time, find joy in all you do. Carve out some time for crafting and creating. And remember, it's always better to make stuff up.